everybody. That means I'm Scotty, that's Motta, and we're back for another episode. And in cheery mood as well, which doesn't seem to be the case of late. A straightforward win for Manchester United. At a cost, though.
It's weird, isn't it? Because like we never usually have just routine wins. And even though this one has been an expensive one because of the injury to Lisandro Martinez, which we'll get to in a minute, the actual win over West Ham itself was pretty run-of-the-mill. A first-half goal, leading at half-time, 1-0. 2 goals in the second half, obviously. 3-0 victory.
Yeah.
Like, West Ham had a few chances. There was a couple of good saves from Onana. But by and large, United were good value for the win. It wasn't like we sort of it flattered to deceive. I know Moyes was moaning that it wasn't a 3-0 game. But I felt like we deserved to win that game. And we deserved to win it comfortably, which we did. It's just a crying shame about Lisandro Martinez. Obviously, we'll get to the Martinez thing in a minute, but it was good as well to see Højlund, Garnacho, and obviously Kobbie Mainoo, that little picture they had together.
Yes,
and just a little reminder that whilst this season has been a bit of a disaster, there is still some little, small light in the tunnel because we have got some very talented young players.
Yeah, I think I put a post out after the Wolves game saying that in a season of disappointments and unfulfilled potential from what was starting at the beginning of the season, to see Kobbie Mainoo do what he did against Wolves, is like a bright, shining light towards what the future looks like. Some people were quite negative about that, saying, "Is it positive?" Because and I'm cynical, and I'll dance.
You know what? You can't say anything.
I'll dance along with all the cynics, but in terms of them three, we were trying to work out, was it Whitney Houston or Diana Ross earlier on who sang "I Believe the Children Are the Future," because that's very much the truth when it comes to them three players. It's just a breath of fresh air, and it feels like that's what we should be focusing on. There were some of the old guard as well that had a really good game. Casemiro had one of his better games of late. I think he looked a bit leggish towards the end. What I did like was Bruno Fernandes was a lot more controlled in his passing. There was a lot more sideways passing rather than just throwing enough at the wall to see what sticks. He just seemed. I'm glad it wasn't exciting throughout. It was just a humdrum win. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in the context of this season, brilliant win. But any other season in normal times for Manchester United, from what we're used to, I'm like 3-0 against West Ham. I'm like, well, we should be doing it. Should be doing it. But West Ham were good for that value, though. I think the first half they had 9 shots to United's 3 in the first half.
Listen, they're doing well, West Ham. I know they've had a few ropey results of late, but they've been near the top end of the table for a big chunk of the season. And when you look at what United have done this season as well, getting battered at home to Bournemouth, losing to Brighton, losing to Palace, our own record isn't great. Our record overall in the Premier League isn't great. But we always said, hopefully when we get certain players back from injury, then we can see United sort of kick on a little bit. And I felt like that was the case. You mentioned Casemiro. I thought he did very well. He did well for Højlund's goal, although Højlund did most of the hard work there, didn't he? Because there was still a lot to do when he got hold of that ball.
With his weaker foot as well.
Yeah, but you see, there's a player that's brimming with confidence. I like that midfield as well. You go back to the Bruno Fernandes comment you said about him being a little bit less erratic. I think Casemiro, Kobbie Mainoo and Bruno Fernandes works well.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's a midfield that makes sense. I think far too often under Ten Hag, we've had a midfield that doesn't always make sense. Like the Casemiro, Bruno, Eriksen midfield kind of made sense as well. Do you know what I mean? If people filled the role that they were meant to fill.
Yeah, there was still some sort of confusion, I think, between Fernandes or Eriksen as to who was doing what was doing. Yeah.
On the whole, for that sort of first 4 months before Oates got injured, it worked. I know there was the odd game where Eriksen, like say, his weaknesses against tough midfielders could get exposed. Him and Bruno didn't always sort of occupy the right spaces. But as a balanced midfield, it more or less worked. Since then, I don't think we've had that.
No.
I think we've had McTominay in there where he's been furthest forward. Bruno's been dropping deep. We've had ones where Eriksen was deep. He tried Mason Mount as a 6. Obviously, Casemiro's been in and out of the team as well. I mean, it's just felt a little bit disjointed. But now you look at it and you can go, okay, we all love Kobbie Mainoo. There's times when he was like playing almost as a 6. Now you've got Casemiro back in there, allows Kobbie Mainoo a little bit more freedom. But then also, Casemiro can push forward and Kobbie Mainoo can drop in, and it doesn't look out of place.
No.
Kobbie Mainoo is such a talented young lad that he can almost play as a 6 or an 8. And then, plus for me, I prefer when Bruno isn't relied upon as well nearer to his own goal, because that's when you start seeing these 70-yard passes where instead of trying to work an opening or do a little 5-yard pass and gradually build a play, he'll try the long pass and to quarterback it all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't need that from him.
There was a great moment as well, just looking at that trinity in the midfield, was that Kobe Mainoo was telling Casemiro to calm down. about halfway through the first half, he was saying that you don't need to rush. Yeah. But that's what it felt like. I think United. And I've been very critical, and a lot of people have taken some problems with me being critical of Ten Hag. But I think he got his tactics spot on yesterday. He knew that West Ham were missing players. As long as we kept possession, it looked like a team that had more of an identity yesterday. Whilst it wasn't like the free-flowing football or whatever, but it was a solid performance, and the goals were great. I think one person, if we're signalling, is Diogo Dalot.
He's been getting a lot of plaudits lately.
I put out before the Wolves game. I felt that Wolves starting 11, which is the best 11 that United have got if everyone's fit. And then people say, well, what about Wan-Bissaka? And I think Dalot is better than Wan-Bissaka on his day for that right back position.
Yeah,
that's for me. I think, and I like the way that he sort of performs with a smile as well. He's always got the energy. And, Old Trafford's always trying to get people up in it before the kick-off.
No, there's a lot to like about Diogo Dalot. We've had him on the channel, spoke to him a couple of times. He's a good guy, and I think there's been a marked improvement in him. I think there's been improvement gradually over the years from Dalot.
Yeah.
At one point, it looked like he wasn't going to get a game. I don't know how keen Jose was on him when he first arrived. And also, then he had a bit of a funny one, didn't he, with Ole, where he was playing some games, obviously got him the penalty in Paris, but then he went on loan to AC Milan, played against United for AC Milan, which shows how shambolic our loan system is, where we're literally letting players play against us to try and beat us. God knows what went on there. But he became the sort of almost forgotten man, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like, when you're loaning players out, he's usually,
that's
especially
the end
players
of the days, isn't it?
that have already been in and around the first team, you think, well, like, he's done. And then we brought in Wan-Bissaka as well, who plays in the same position for 50 million quid. You think, well, that's that. But we've seen it last season, but definitely this season, as Wan-Bissaka's sort of been injured or been edged out or just not been, playing or whatever, for whatever reason, Dalot's kept his place, and he's kept his place in the team. Sometimes he's moved over to the left, but he's also played on the right, and he's done well. And he saw that block that he did yesterday.
At 2-0 as well.
2-0. Vital block. And you mention the Bournemouth game where he was getting a lot of stick for obviously having that shot on the near post just before their third. It was like night and day, wasn't it? Because here you go in, it could have been 3-0 if it wasn't for his actions. And I think he deserves a lot of the credit because, I think there's a good case to be made that Diogo Dalot will actually get in a lot of other teams. I'm not saying he get in every team, but as a sort of modern right back, he's actually quite decent.
Yeah, and the thing that, especially that he can play left and right back as well. Obviously, his right is favoured, but he has had to fill in at United in a few positions this season. We'll get on to Martinez, the injury update very, very soon. But if you're watching and you've not subscribed already, why not? It won't cost you anything and it helps us massively out. If you are already subscribing, you are some of the coolest people on the planet. So it did come at a cost, this 3-0 victory against West Ham. Once you sort of seen him get injured, and then Ten Hag said after in the press conference, it doesn't look like a good one, does it?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people expected it to be an ACL.
Yeah, I mean, you fear the worst, don't you? Because it was a knee injury. Looked like it, could have been his ACL, which would have been, it could have been the rest of the season. Maybe they'd be next season. And also then as well, you're looking at it thinking, is this the end of him at United almost? Is he going to be one of those players that's always injured? Because we're into his second season. He's already missed the back end of last season. Then if he had a long-term injury this season, he's already missed the beginning of this season. Is that, is it going to be like he's played a quarter of the first two years? Thankfully, it isn't that serious. He's out for 8 weeks. That's been confirmed by the club. I think the club have confirmed
8 weeks minimum, though, is that?
8 weeks minimum. At least 8 weeks is what's being said. I think he could come back after the international break in March. So the back end of March. But he doesn't need surgery. So that's a massive relief. Because obviously when a player needs surgery, again, it can be a worry, can't it? Because it's like, is he going to come back the same player? And also, obviously, then you've got the amount of time. Sorry, I think I've just gone off the YouTube channel. You've got the amount of time that takes as well. So, I mean, I'm just relieved more than anything. And I'm a bit annoyed because he's such a good player for us, and you want him.
He's pivotal, isn't he, in that back, and as much for his ability on the ball, but for the sort of leadership that he has and commands that sort of back four, and his way to pass through the lines from defence. It's as great as Varane is as a defender of Rolls-Royce Varane. You know, I don't think he's got the passing game that Martinez has, and he's not going to go through players the way Martinez does. And them sort of tackles that Martinez is capable of, gets the crowd on its feet and has an infectious effect on the rest of his teammates around him. 8 weeks is a long time though, especially when it looks like United now. And I'm not getting ahead of myself because I see people on Twitter, because how many times this season have we seen United do a great performance and then get beat by the likes of Bournemouth or struggle against Leeds? So let's get Aston Villa out of the way on Sunday.
That's a tough one. Even that fact we're missing Martinez, that is a bit of a...
Well, it is when you look at the mistakes that Harry Maguire made at the weekend. Because
Martinez got him out of jail, didn't he?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Was it Johnson who went through?
Yeah,
and
there's
really
a few times Maguire messed up.
Because he got dispossessed in Maguire, and then Martinez did very well because he had someone behind him, so he couldn't just fully commit, because then if it's a pass, if it's a square ball, your man's going to go in and score. So he had to sort of block the pass off and try and put a little bit of pressure on the attacker. And he was fortunate in a way that I'm pretty sure it was Johnson. His finishing was terrible and he just spooned it. But part of the reason why he didn't finish well, didn't have an easier chance, was because Martinez, he's very, very savvy in what he did. He didn't just go steam straight in, because like I say, he plays that sideways pass, then it's all over because he's just got a one-on-one with the keeper. He didn't stay with his man, because if he does that, you're giving Johnson a free run towards the goal, and he can just get his shot off the way he wanted to. He did very sort of a balanced approach to it and paid dividends. So whilst that was fantastic, like you were saying there, Scotty, it worries me a little bit, because that's a little bit of a reminder that Maguire has had some good games this season, and I think he's silenced a few critics. He's still got one in him, and he's not Lisandro Martinez.
No, not at all. I think he's got more than one in him. That's the problem.
I don't like the Onana to Martinez can work, because Martinez can get you out of jail because he's that good on the ball. Sometimes I think Onana with Maguire, it's a little bit more.
Yeah,
it's a little bit more problematic. Let's get into some of the comments, because we've had loads of comments here. Mick Holohan says 6 to 8 weeks. I would take it. Feared the worst for Martinez. The Mancalorian says, I think he's being targeted. This is a tough break for Martinez. Hope it's not too serious. But already since coming to his league, or to this league, his career being ruined, that will eventually force him to move. Ryan Yannick says, not ideal, but 6 to 8 weeks is a hell of a lot better than 6 to 8 months. Matthew Cooper says, let him recover properly until after the international break. Do not rush him back. Yeah, well said. Tony Soprano's in the chat. He says, evening, fellas. Raf22 says, hello from Soprano territory in New Jersey. Ross McPherson says, evening all, gutted about Leacher, but that incident looked worse than a 6 to 8 weeker initially. United 58 says, good result, average performance. We are still miles away from where we should be. Matt Wick says, Casemiro, Bruno, Mount made so much sense on paper, but we ain't seen it for one reason or another. Santa Notch, always good to see Notch in the chat, says, amazing what happens when you have midfielders who know when and where to run, position, etc. Lee New says, heard the news about the King. No, I haven't. Darren Mack says, only time I've seen United be able to play through the middle is when Casemiro, Varane and Martinez are playing. Without three, we are nothing but three kids full of potential. Santa Notch also goes on to say, Leacher speeds up our play from the back, big tome as well. That will stop for a while again. David Mwando, says, Diogo was excellent. What a performance. When are we going to get rid of Onana? Just don't like the guy. I mean, he can't save even a low shot. Seriously, he's just fattening around, at Old Trafford. What do you make of Onana?
I'm not convinced in the slightest, to be absolutely honest with you. I've not seen anything that I don't think any other mid-table goalkeeper would offer at United.
Okay.
Have you really? And I know you're willing to give people time to prove themselves, but I was thinking about Onana when he came back from AFCON, but he only played one game, didn't he, when he was out there?
Yeah.
When Man City signed that Claudio Bravo, he was rubbish at what Pep wanted him to do.
Yeah.
City got rid of him the season after. Would United be willing to do that? Have you seen enough from Onana to be convinced now, in February, that he's the one to take us forward? And what if you have them? What is it?
Well, I think there's loads of different sides to that question. I'll answer all of them. With Bravo, you're right. He was given a season, end of the season. Pep got rid of him. And I think we did a video on Paddock before, and I think that's what will happen with Onana. Not that he'll get rid of him, but I think make an assessment there, and I think you'll make an assessment on the manager as well. And let's not forget, this is a manager that brought in Onana and knew him from Ajax. So if he keeps his job and Onana does well to end the season, he might say, right, I brought him in, he's my guy, and we've ended up finishing, let's say we finish 4th and we get a FA Cup, so I've kept my job. I'm happy with him. If Ten Hag gets sacked, the new manager might come in and go, well, one of the reasons you got sacked was because of him, because he cost you in the Champions League, and we don't know what's going to happen between now and the end of the season, but I take it if Ten Hag's got sacked, it hasn't gone well. So there's a chance that Onana, his days are numbered. In terms of what does he do, we've seen him play out well from the back, but what we've done is, for some reason, I don't know why, we've kind of decided to stop doing that with him. You remember the Arsenal game when he was playing out from the back? You remember what he did for Inter Milan? He was quite comfortable on the ball. And yet now we started go long all the time, or not all the time, but a lot of the time, which is erratic at best, and I don't really get that. I think if you're bringing in a goalkeeper, because David De Gea struggled to play out from the back, and you want a goalkeeper to play out from the back, then get him to play out from the back. Don't bring in a square peg to fit in a round hole. Because it doesn't make any sense to me, that, because it's like...
It's confusing for the keeper, to start giving him that.
Like, beginning of the season, everyone was going, all right, he's a bit of a lunatic, but he can play. He's got, he's great with the ball at his feet. That's probably one of his best attributes. And then we've almost taken that away from his game, which, as you pointing out, what else does he do? I think some of his shot stopping is very good. I do. I thought the save he made against Erling Haaland at Old Trafford was phenomenal. I thought he did a very good save from close range against West Ham, because it took a deflection as well. So some of his shot stopping is good. The one thing that worries me about him is he has this tendency when he saves to push it back into danger. He does a lot of that. And this, like, any goalkeeper knows, when you parry a shot, you obviously always try to parry it as far away as you can. And sometimes he doesn't do that. And it's weird, because you think, if he was 18, I get it. But he's been around a long time. He's won a few titles at Ajax.
It's not the naivety that when De Gea signed for United, you expected them sort of them mistakes when you're green behind the ears.
He does seem to he has this sort of thing where the ball invariably ends up, say, this table in front of him again. Even when he did it a couple of times on Saturday, I thought he did okay on Saturday. Like I said, he did one very good save, where the ball was almost straight at him, and he still parried it a little bit. And it's like he almost, that's his default setting. No matter what, I will parry it. And I think that worries me, because that can be costly. And also, if you've got a shot, say, that's straight at you, and you parry it into danger and then they score, it's on you, that. There's no excuses. You can't blame your defenders. You can't blame anyone else. And if that happens between now and the end of the season and it ends up being costly for Manchester United, then those are the kind of things that can do for you. So I do think he deserves to get to the end of the season. I don't think, I'll say, Bayern Day is going to come in ahead of him. I think that would make Erik ten Hag look insane if he spent all this money on a goalkeeper and then give him 6 months and then dropped him. I think... you're best putting your own head on the chopping block if he does that. He has to stick by the keeper that he's got to buy. And he's got to hope that this kid turns out to be the keeper.
Oh, he's got so much riding on that.
Yeah, because I think you're right. I think if he doesn't, he's already, let's have it right, he's already cost him the Champions League. Like, that Galatasaray game, and was it Copenhagen? Maybe not fully all on him. There was other mistakes that were made. But the Galatasaray game in particular, it was all on him. That loss, and that we never really recovered from it. So you have to do something in the league, and you have to do something if you get the opportunity to in the FA Cup as well. Because I do feel a little bit sorry for Onana. It's not easy coming into United, and it's not easy succeeding a goalkeeper who's been here for 12 years or whatever. But that's the nature of the beast. You're coming into a team that's got aspirations of challenging for the very top. You're not going to get forever. David De Gea had his moments in his first season. Don't forget, he got dropped for Anders Lindegaard at one point. Yeah. When Fergie, it's one of the few times I've heard Fergie call out a player publicly. But he recovered from that. He did what he needed to do. He bulked up a little bit. He, ironed out a few of the errors in his game, and he more than made up for it with his shot stopping.
Do you think that any of the performances by Onana have been impacted by the lack of elite players around him, the likes of Martinez and Varane, not having a sort of setback for week in, week out, has had an impact on him? You're saying there that you're nervous about Maguire and Onana playing. So if Onana likes playing the ball out, but he's not too comfortable with how Maguire's getting the ball, you're gonna go long. Do you know what I mean? Because I would.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So it's like how much. If you've got better players around you, you will always play better. You know what I mean? So it's how much has the bad players had a negative effect on Onana's performances?
I think you're right, but then I will say that even if you have had a back four that's changed a lot, even if you have gone from like Johnny Evans to Maguire to Shaw, played centre back I think at times, to Lindelof to Varane, like that is unsettling. but it doesn't excuse some of the mistakes I've seen.
No.
Like, just because you've got, a unsettled back four, you shouldn't be conceding the goal that we saw against Brentford, for example, or you shouldn't be conceding some of the goals we saw against Galatasaray. That's just a lack of concentration. That I'm sorry, it is. Now you might be, he's got a 4 and he's not quite confident. Whatever, I understand all that, but even so, some of these goals we've conceded have been basic, and I think that's where I do lose a little bit of sympathy with Onana, because I like the kid, like I say, and I do want to see him at least be given to the end of the season, and I'm still holding on that he'll turn it around. But some of his mistakes, I can't make excuses for. It's just not good enough, and it's a shame because, again, I wanted us to change the goalkeeper. I thought David De Gea was an issue last season, and not just in the FA Cup final. We saw it before that as well. I mean, the Sevilla game was where it was just comical.
Was that the one where he was sort of like drunk on the post? Was that the Sevilla game?
It might be.
Where it sort of snuck in between him, like as a drunk holding onto the side.
Oh, it might have been. There was the Sevilla game. I think there was 3 goals that were all his fault, and then the third one was the one where he kicked it straight to the Sevilla player and then fell over, and then tried to die. We was on the watch long. I ended up laughing, and I don't like laughing at players making a mistake, but it was just so comical. It made me giggle. So yeah, it's not easy with Onana, but you've got to turn it around. There's no short and long about it. And like you said, Claudio Bravo came in. Pep made this big sort of song and dance about replacing Joe Hart. It was a big move, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Joe Hart was
huge.
a popular goalkeeper. He was only in his late 20s. He won 2 titles with City. Bit of a fan's favourite. No one really saw him as an issue. I think he was more or less England's number 1. And then Pep comes in and goes, "No, I want Claudio Bravo." Claudio Bravo had stinker, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a really
Remember that
bad
one at Old
season.
Trafford? I think it was one of his first games where he was terrible.
Bring him back.
I know, that's the City.
But that's the thing, it's how ruthless Pep and the City board were, and it'll be telling if Onana continues to have an erratic season. What did the board say in the summer? Is Onana the sort of, let's say Ten Hag keeps his job, Onana isn't still playing like a bit hit and miss. Where are United improving next season for you? Is there still a question mark for you on Onana? Is that where you'd be looking to sort of improve?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I don't know where you go after Onana. I don't know what you do. Like, do you give Bayandere a chance? Is he any good? Do you go and spend another big chunk of money on another goalkeeper? Who is the goalkeeper out there? Because I think a lot of goalkeepers have had issues. You look at David Raya, who went to Arsenal, replaced Ramsdale. He had some right dodgy ones, didn't he? And even now, there's still a slight question mark over him. Was it Chelsea? Me and Ethan, producer Ethan, were talking about this morning. They went out and they bring in, is it Sanchez they got and someone else as well? And they've all looked a bit ropey. I mean, it's very hard, isn't it, to get a goalkeeper who, comes straight in and you go, right, he's the one for us. It's doable, obviously, but there's no one really that's sort of standing out for me. By all means, get involved in the chat and the comments who I think we should get him. Yeah. He's the one, obvious one. If it doesn't work out with Onana, we go out and we get Jordan Pickford, for example. I'm not saying we get Jordan Pickford, but there's no one where I go, he's the guy for me.
If you had the opportunity to go back to the summer and you saw the money that was spent on certain players, who would you not spend the money on, and where would you sort of reallocate it within the squad? So for me, no way would have, given what we know now, 55 million on missing Mason Mount. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, you'd keep that in your back pocket, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, especially with Kobe Mainoo coming as well. It's not like something we need. I don't think Onana. How much did Onana cost in the end?
There was a bit of not an argument, but I think they let's say, was it around 45, 50 million?
So that's like 100 mil.
Is that right, Eve? Yeah.
So that's roughly 100, 110 mil on them 2 players.
Yeah.
I think if we kept De Gea another season, we're still in a similar situation we are now. Even I'd go so far to say that we may still be in the Champions League if we had De Gea.
I would have gone another way of looking at it and said that maybe, even if he could have made amends or not made amends, but worked out something with Dean Henderson, you might be in a similar position. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
A similar position to what we're in now if Dean Henderson's the goalkeeper. You still think he'd have made the mistakes that Dean Henderson? No.
Maybe not. Maybe he might be in a better position then. Do you know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think my only sort of, like I say, we've been here before at United where the table or the team or the situation looks one way in February, and when you get to the end of the season, it looks another way. So there's still 4 big months for Onana to turn around. It's not easy. I'm not saying it is, but he's still got sweaty games in front of him or whatever, you count the FA Cup, where he could go, we could end up finishing 4th, and an FA Cup, you go, fantastic, he has a storm in the final or whatever, making, exaggerating a point to make a point, as Maka would say. But it's still possible for him. However, if he has the second half of the season the same as the first half, I don't know. I don't think him or his manager survives that.
No, and the thing is as well that again, the future of Onana may rely on Martinez being out for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
If
it's mad that injury could do for Onana, it could do for Ten Hag as well.
Yeah, and the midfield as well, because that being the link between the sort of midfield that's been performing well. But I mean, on a positive note,
go on, brother.
We are almost equal. You ready for this?
Go on.
Equal with Luton on goal difference.
Shut up.
Almost. I think we're one off.
That's amazing. That is like,
the mighty
I
Luton.
think we need to have a parade again, another parade. Let's have a look. I'm not doubting you. I know you. Like Luton have scored. Oh, this is where they've scored 32 and conceded. No, so Luton are on -10. We're on -1, bro. So what have we done?
It might be goals.
Oh, so it's goals scored. So Manchester United have scored 31 goals.
Yeah.
And Luton have scored 32.
Yeah, so 1 goal off them. Yeah.
We're close. We're getting closer. Yeah.
He looks good, Højlund, though, doesn't he? Like in everything that's been abysmal about this season, for a lad that's come in with a hefty price tag, a lot of pressure with that, because we weren't getting goals from anywhere else. He's never once looked like he's not trying or not playing with a smile. Do you know, he always has the enthusiasm of like Charlie Bucket, who's just got a golden ticket to Willy Wonka's factory. You know, like the way he legs it around and has that sort of drive, and that's the same in Kobe Mainoo, and as well with Garnacho, who for me has been United's best player this season.
Garnacho, right, sorry. No, I love Højlund. Fantastic player, great lad, got his head down, kept going, ignored all the haters after those 14 games, whatever it was in the Premier League, that goal and an assist. Obviously, we saw what he did in the Champions League where he was banging him in.
Yeah, man.
And it's not been easy for him. He's come here, he wasn't fully fit when we signed him. He's got a backup striker or another striker who's more or less useless, completely useless in Anthony Martial, because he's just constantly injured. So there's more pressure on him there. He's not been getting great service, let's be honest. Some of the service he's had has been absolutely atrocious, but he still kept going, and he's still managed now to put himself in a position where he's in double figures. And that feels like a moment, that, doesn't it? To reach double figures.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, that's it, you've made it because you're a striker who cost 70 million quid and you've hit 10 goals. But at bare minimum, as a Manchester United striker, you have to hit double figures in all competitions, and he's done that. Now he's got to build on it.
Yeah, and to score them goals in a season where United have, in my mind, played some of the worst football ever in the Premier League. So, that in the context of the season, to get them goals, all things considered, is quite the achievement. And again, we said at the beginning of the show, it all bodes well for the future. I think now it's going to be a transition to getting rid of the old guard, like the likes of Casemiro, Varane. I think Fernandes is 30 next year, bringing this new lot in and then finding someone who's going to sort of balance the tide until these young lads with all the prospects at their feet, come of age. But yeah, it is positive, and who'll be in charge, who knows? Like you said, it may rest a lot on Onana and Martinez. Any questions before we go?
Yeah, I'm just going to read a couple of comments before we wrap up. Lee News says Mason Mount money goes on another centre forward without a doubt. Lewis S1 says we didn't really need a keeper in the summer. Could have went another year with De Gea and spent the money elsewhere. Looking for me, says Mount will come good. He's had injuries, hasn't he, Mount? It's a bit unlucky, really, because he's never usually that injury prone like he's been since he got here. Rooney the Greybird says, evening fellas, always good to hear. Fellow Mancunians, not like the other channels, okay? Listen, we love everyone, whether they're Mancunian or not, but Manchester's better, innit? Ross McPherson says, loving the fact that Rasmus is scoring different types of goals too. Scrappy one against Wolves, a banger yesterday, header versus Galatasaray. Long may it continue. Listen, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you to everyone who has got involved in the chat. If you're not doing already, make sure you are subscribing to the channel. Also, there's a little link for our Patreon there. Put extra content on Patreon, helps us as well do what we do. Yeah. So we do appreciate your support. Thank you to my good friend Scotty. I've been Matty, I was going to say that, I forgot my name.
Matty and Scotty.
Matty and Scotty, the Cutty version of Scotty and Mutty. Thanks for watching.